This is Miriam, and you're listening to KXVS, the voice of Stockton.
You know what I got? I got a picture of his face with the little pillow on, the sleep face, and we're in Chicago.
Are they already in Chicago?
The one and only Leo Biaz. Hey, Leo.
I'm excited to be back, my man. It was 9 days in Vegas. We got stuck in the desert, and we had a little hangover remix out there, man.
I wore a wig to school once, and they said no headgear was allowed.
How did
spider web
was it
tights.
Obvious that it was a wig?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was having
terrible
fun.
wig.
See, this is exactly why we have them on the show, and this is what makes them fun.
You're listening to KXVS, the voice of Stockton, 92.1 FM.
KXVS on 92.1 coming soon. KXVS.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
And it's that time of the night. It's a Monday night, and here's your host, the one and only, the world famous Mr. Nate Knott.
Well, when they start throwing money, then I'll really be happy about all that. That fame.
I could have said World Traveler also.
Yeah, fame without the fortune, I think. But anyway, I don't know about the fame either. Yeah, I guess I consider him a world traveler. In fact, Governor Don and I, and a little bit with Betty, we kicked around that European trip.
Yeah.
The one where I fell 7 times.
Oh, I didn't know about this. I haven't talked to you about this. You fell 7 times.
Yeah, it became such a running joke that I started counting.
Were you like Mr. Bean? Is that what the English...
I never thought about Mr. Bean.
Isn't that his thing where he fell?
Yeah, well... My situation is I wear risers on my right shoe.
Oh,
they don't have the same grip as the left shoe normally. Mm-hmm. And I've got my heavy-duty mailman type shoes on right now, but actually both soles are relatively slick rubber. And everywhere, in Europe, they take their, we talked about this, Governor Don, they take their history seriously. Grip tape, or you don't just, modify your polished marble that's been there for 1,000 years, or your polished tile or stones. You leave it right there, and people just have to find a way to deal with it. But everywhere Becky and I went, my Peruvian beauty, first Rome, it rained the first few days. Then we went to Marseille, and it rained heavy there. Then we went back to Rome for our final night there, and we woke up to a foot of snow.
Wow.
And that was a bit of a challenge that morning getting to the airport at first.
Global warming's real.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, definitely. I've only been talking about that since about 1979.
Oh, you were ahead of the trend before Al Gore?
I'm not exactly new to the subject, and I'm not a Johnny-come-lately on that subject. So anyway, then we go to Frankfurt, and each day it gets a little progressively colder. Next thing you know, we take a day trip to Luxembourg. While we're eating lunch in an authentic French restaurant in Old Luxembourg, 200 feet below the city, but right next to the historic river, and I forgot the name of the river now, it starts snowing while we're having lunch, which is a pretty interesting experience in a French restaurant, no less, in Europe. It ultimately snowed about a foot just in a couple hours. I took my worst fall, actually, in Luxembourg when I slipped and fell on a polished stone stairway. It landed on my side. But then we got back to Frankfurt, and it snowed there. But that was all good. The most challenging weather we faced was changing airplanes in Reykjavik, Iceland.
Oh, I hear Iceland's really hip with the youngsters right now.
Yeah,
people around my age.
It is the hip place, by the way.
Yeah.
Of course, they extort you when you're there.
Oh, do they?
The only price they list is their currency, and their currency has a couple more zeros than ours does. And you really actually have no idea what something's going to cost till they ring it up in American money or whatever you're using. They'll accept 6 currencies there. Mm. But like a cup of coffee that's about 5 ounces is listed for 490, whatever. I think the acronym for their currency is IKS, if I remember right. But when you see a cup of coffee for 490, I think it came out to about, I want to say $6 or something like that for this little tiny cup of coffee. But anyway, it's a pretty cool place. But they did transfers outdoors from one plane to the other. And as we were walking up the slick metal stairway, it was about, I think, minus 2 degrees Celsius, but the wind was blowing about 45 miles an hour.
Whoa.
and I was trying to hold on to my carry-on bag, another bag, and what had been a hot cup of coffee. Anyway, we got on the plane somehow. But that was WOW Airlines, by the way. That sounds goofy, but it's a very trendy new airline with purple colors and retrofitted stewardesses looking like something out of the 1960s from the television show Mad Men, or that movie docudrama about Pan Am or something. Mm-hmm. So they've gone to these retro uniforms with even the little pointed hats and everything. It was pretty cool, except that you pay for everything on that airline. I mean, everything, and it's not cheap. Now, they actually have 12 planes that meet in Reykjavik. It's either every other day or every third day. Everything was good. My suitcase did get to enjoy an around-the-world tour of approximately 10 or 11 days. So it got its money's worth. I don't know how many countries it visited, but it did return. Actually, a week ago today. Yeah, a week ago today it returned. No. It was Wednesday, I think. Anyways, it was all a good trip. But we already talked about all that with Governor Don, so I don't want to repeat too much.
Just repeat it with me. How was the media over there? Was that different?
The what again?
Media?
Oh, I
didn't watch any TV or anything?
I'm not really good at foreign languages.
No subtitles?
Becky was, so she understood the Italian television very well. Her Spanish and Italian as spoken on the airwaves, she understood very clearly. Mm. She didn't always understand the people speaking Italian, but she understood it on television and radio. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but anyway, to finish up the fall story, I had one fall that was fairly hilarious. It was hilarious because I didn't get hurt, of course.
Nobody got it on camera, huh?
But no, I wish they had.
Maybe they do though, but they have CTE.
Well, I'm sure it's on camera, but it's not public television because it was in the Vatican. The funny thing about that, I'll never forget this as long as I live. My right foot, I'm coming down a polished marble stairway, and it's moist because it's raining. Mm-hmm. And as my right foot hit the ground from the bottom step, both legs went out from under me instantly, and I actually kind of slid onto my rear end. But I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, within 3/4 of 1 second, before I even kind of knew what had happened, count them four, quattro, or as they say in German, fear. People were bending over saying, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I guess the Vatican City, with its vast, deep pockets, worries a little bit about liability, probably. And I think to the naked eye, it looked like the back of my head might have bounced a little bit on the stairway. It really didn't, but I think that's how it looked to people. I was completely okay, but the one in when I slipped on the stairway though in Luxembourg, I landed on my side. And I didn't get up too quickly from that one, but I was real lucky that all I did was I missed all the bones, and I probably had a mild muscle bruise that was actually healed the next day, which kind of shocked me because it didn't go down that well at the time it occurred. Okay, so anyway, yeah, we did have a great trip. We did enjoy it. Of course, we left KXVS with many Mondays of reruns, which we're trying to backfill now with these new live shows. This is actually only the second time we've been on the air live 2 consecutive weeks. Way back when the show first started, we were on live. I think we were on live 3 of the first 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Then we've been on mostly every other week, and then we've had the occasional opportunities where other things came up and we couldn't get in here. But yeah, I have to give special thanks and a shout out to Betty out there, our #1 Monday through Saturday radio host, who always turns over her vast listening audience to me. Anyway, Betty got me on the air, including the theme song. She managed to figure that out and get it up about 20 seconds before airtime. And then Governor Don came into the rescue, just like he came in out of the bullpen. And he finished up about the last 45 minutes with the show. So, anyway, we wound up with a pretty good show last week. I did promise then, and I'll promise it again, I didn't want to turn the show into a travelogue and start people on their evening naps too soon.
It's like the Hugh Hauser show with Nate.
Holy wow! Look at that! Look at that port of Stockton. There's actual ocean ships out here. I didn't know Stockton had ocean ships. Look at that! By golly,
the late great Hugh Hauser.
Yeah, he was great. There's nobody like Hugh Hauser. And then one time he's up in the foothills. He claims, and I have no reason to doubt him because the guy was sincerity through and through. He claims that he just ran into this tourist railroad. which happened to have a Shea-type locomotive, which I won't try to describe to our vast listening audience. I will say the pistons are horizontal on the outside of one side. It's a logging engine. But, wow, we found a railroad out here in the mountains. Look at this. Could you believe it? There's a railroad there. Look at that steam locomotive. You ever seen anything like that? And he goes on for about 10 minutes about how lucky he was that he found this thing. And then, of course, they fired up the engine and took him on a trip. But that was one of my favorite Huell-Hauser episodes. Now, I should point out, when he did the city of Stockton, I was on that. I got to go on the trip on the
Do you have the tape?
boat. I have the tape, but Becky and I made a point of not trying to interrupt him or try to hog any airtime or make idiots of ourselves by talking to him. So we only show up ourselves for maybe about 3 seconds in the background. But we were on the ship, the boat tour of the Port of Stockton. He used for about 10 minutes of his show, and that was, and I got those, and those tickets were passed down to me ultimately from Wes Ray of our Visit Stockton organization.
Wes Ray, who's been on the station before.
Yeah, and so I didn't know Wes Ray at that time. Actually, they were passed on to me by a gentleman named Paul Rapp, who was then the marketing manager for San Joaquin RTD. Now he works for the provost office at University of the Pacific. But for some reason, he couldn't go. He got the tickets from Wes Ray. He couldn't go. He had helped set up part of Huell-Hauser's tour, which included a trip on RTD's beloved former green trolley buses. He also went to Bunny's Cafe, which is where I used to eat breakfast every day, which dates back to the historic Bunny's Hole in the Wall restaurant. I don't know if you ever heard of that. But I'll describe that in another show. I don't want to get too much into, get too off the wall here today. But anyway, yeah, so I've seen Huell-Hauser on television, and I've seen him up close. And yes, I do have the DVD of that particular episode when he did Stockton. He spent quite a bit of time at Pixie Woods. He found Bunny's restaurant. He went to the Sheik Temple that's on, I believe, Carpenter Road. Whichever one has all the monuments and the interesting lifelike characters. And I think he went to Mickey Grove Zoo. I can't remember for sure, but I think he went to Mickey Grove Zoo. And then he did the boat trip on the Port of Stockton. And he went maybe to Paragary's at that time, downtown in the Hotel Stockton. So anyway, we have lots of things. You know, the show's called Stockton Alive. Well, Stockton is alive. We've got lots of good stuff going on here.
What's on the show tonight, Nate?
Yeah, that's right. That's on the show.
We'll do a segue. That's
right. Exactly.
That was the cold open.
That was just the appetizer. Now we're going to get to the main course here. First of all, I want to mention all the recent success stories that are now hitting anniversary. When you hit an anniversary, that's a sign you're still around, of course. It's a sign that there's probably some real success. So, one of your favorite places had its 1-year anniversary, I want to say a couple months ago, and that's the Cast Iron Trading Company. And then one of your even more favorite places probably that had their 1-year anniversary just this past Saturday night from 4 p.m. to midnight was the one and only Channel Brewing Company, where you quarterbacked last year the extraordinarily talented KXVS Voice of Stockton trivia team. I believe you guys are in a neck-and-neck tug-of-war battle with, let's see, the woman from COG, with the bicycle coalition, Carrie McNichol. Yes, and you guys went down to the wire.
Yes, we did.
Wasn't the final margin like 9 points out of a couple thousand or something? So now who was ahead going into the final episode or show?
They were.
Okay, so you couldn't quite catch up to them.
Not yet, yeah. We started out great, but then at the end, kind of.
Was there a particular question that nailed you guys or helped them?
There was a couple categories every week that were difficult. I was like, really? Never thought about that as a trivia question. But I guess anything could be trivia.
Well, yeah. There's a famous saying that 3 seconds ago is history.
True.
Well, trivia is almost right there with it. In fact, trivia and history are pretty well linked together, since trivia is sort of a record of history, or at least it's a log of events that you can turn into interesting or really boring accounts of things. So anyway, Channel Brewing Company, with its anniversary, I unfortunately, I was been too busy preparing for work yesterday, to go to that event. However, Friday night, I went to a great event, which was the Save Downtown Stockton Federation annual fundraising event, which this year was downtown at the Mexican Heritage Center. Have you been to the Mexican Heritage Center?
I haven't, but I heard about the event. I heard it was really nice.
Yeah, it was great. And, of course, it was hosted by the first guest we had on Stockton Live, Martina Morio, who is the president of Save Downtown Stockton. The charming woman whose roots go back to Germany, which is interesting since I was just in Germany, and whom we've often compared to the famous woman that used to be on the wonderful, goofy show Green Acres.
It's the place to be, isn't it?
It's the place to be, that's right. And fresh air, Times Square, the chores and the stores. But anyway, so she was the host. That was great. Christina Frankel was there with some great paintings and drawings to auction off, including an original architectural drawing of the former great look at Main Street with the fountain by Glenn Mortensen, the historic, iconic Stockton architect, who has actually done some of these planning and some of the kind of engineering drawings of what the wonderful spire should look like when it's installed in the now dirt circle of the Martin Luther King Plaza next to the Chavez Library. That former water fountain that was out there for about 50 years before they built the new courthouse and had to remove the water fountain. That water fountain, to remind her, and this is the big project of Save Downtown Stockton, is raising money for this 50-foot copper tubing that the water used to come up through and then trickle down. That was the intent. In fact, it was an article in the paper that Glenn Mortensen designed it that way, knowing that Stockton can be very windy, especially in the evening, especially with the prevailing winds coming off the ocean. Glenn Mortensen designed that specifically so water would crawl up through the pipes and kind of like roll over, trickle over, roll down, rather than a shooting in the air fountain in which the water would be blown every which way by the wind. Anyway, the idea is that fountain is going, and we'll have a whole other show on this as they get closer to being able to do this, but that 50 feet of copper tubing will become what's known as a dry display, but there's more to it than that. Well, it'll be a nice-looking, attractive display in the dirt circle that's there now that used to once be a fountain, or I should say more of a pool and fountain with fresh flowers. The city of Stockton was not able, in the long term, to maintain it with their budget. But once that is installed there, they're going to build an oval infrastructure marked up circle or oval around it that will become a sundial. And Stockton will have what will then become a very big tourist attraction, world-class sundial right there in the middle of Martin Luther King Plaza next to the Cesar Chavez Library. Unfortunately, they're just not quite there yet. They need about 100,000. They've got about 10,000. But hey, KXV has successfully raised the money against all odds to tower up. So I'm looking forward to the day when our airwaves are magically floating through the air and the atmosphere, and people can get KXVS, the voice of Stockton, over the car FM radio as well as streaming in on your phone or computer or mobile device.
Now that's what we call a plug in the radio business.
You betcha. Yep. So that's why I tried to make sure I came back live so I could take whatever trickle of ratings I've got and not let the fountain go dry with too many reruns.
Hey, Nate, you're the best show at 6 p.m. Monday nights.
There we go.
KXVS.
Yeah, I'm KXVS, top-rated show at 6 p.m. on Monday night.
Yeah, nobody can beat you.
That's right.
There's only up from here.
So, anyway, yeah, I'm sure we probably got KNBR in San Francisco and KFPK in Sacramento trembling, but, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's okay.
Watch out, Tom Tolbert.
That's right. Yeah. Although Mr. T the Razor's gone now.
Yes, he's been gone for a while.
It's actually the Tom Tolbert show now, isn't it?
It's John Lund and Tom Tolbert.
What is it?
John Lund.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Used to be the Razor and Mr. T.
Yes. Then it was Ray Randall for a while.
That's right. Yep.
And it Tom Tolbert, and now Tolbert and Lund.
And I remember when Tolbert played for the Warriors.
Yeah, former University of Arizona Wildcat.
That's right. And he is definitely a very good player.
Yes.
He was one of the first big, tall forwards to occasionally shoot the three-pointer, and he had a pretty good average with doing it. Although his game was really getting offensive rebounds and either kicking the ball out for another three-pointer or driving into the basket.
Or putbacks.
Yeah, putbacks, either with a basket or a foul, and he was a good free throw shooter. Okay, so anyway, we had the fundraiser there, and that was at the Mexican Heritage Center, which is located on Market Street at Main Street. Mm-hmm. It's the former Standard Oil Company of California building, and they've really decorated. It's got beautiful, huge picture windows and a nice, huge hardwood floor banquet room, which is where the event was. And I meant to mention, I think we did mention it, I don't remember for sure, but during every Christmas season, they have huge nativity scenes set up all around that banquet room. And they're very spectacular. One of these days, we're going to, of course, come in here and we're going to prepare a show in advance, and we're going to be able to pop up some photos of things as we talk about these. We're certainly going to do that with the transportation show that we keep teasing everyone with. That is definitely on the way. Okay, to go into the fairly recent past, we've had a couple other big events. And I know I'm missing a ton of events as I say this, but I'm going to mention a few that I can remember. We also had the Raise the Bamboo Ceiling Awards dinner at about a month, I think that was in early January or late December at the Stockton Golf and Country Club. That's essentially honoring Asian women who have made it to a point of achievement or some kind of community leader. And RTD's very own Deputy CEO, Gloria Salazar, was one of the awardees this year. And then there was, and I know I'm getting the name of this event wrong, it was something like Young Women's Extraordinary Achievement Award or something, but I call it Empowering Women Achievement Award. And this was the most crowded dinner I've ever been to at the Stockton Golf and Country Club. They had as many tables as could humanly be set up there. Mm-hmm. They even had to move the silent auction into the lounge bar area because of how much, and they had the food was also in a different location because they had so many tables in there. But I mention this because our very own KXVS Voice of Stockton radio broadcaster Jasmine Leake.
Personality.
Yes, personality. Thank you.
No problem.
Was one of the awardees that night.
Congratulations, Jasmine.
Yeah, so RTD had a full table there, and so did Save Downtown Stockton, I might add, at that event. So that was great for Jasmine.
RTD is leading the way personalities.
That's right.
Of KXCS.
That's right.
Yes.
So we had those events. And I don't remember this event either, but it was a great event. And it also happened to be Stockton Golf. I'm not trying to plug them specifically.
What's your average nowadays, Nate?
Yeah, it's just the coincidence that these events all happened to be there, and I was at them. But there was a great event, which is an annual event, where young medical students, high school students with college credits in the medical field, get there, and these classes are leading right directly into enrollment at major universities in the medical field. Also had a big awards dinner there at the Stockton Golf and Country Club. That I'm pretty sure was in January, and that event was very full also. And the good thing about this event is it primarily tends to help people through it's a scholarship program, and it gets kids who aren't really all that wealthy with an opportunity to have a big time education. And because they didn't grow up empowered with a lot of things given to them, there's a good chance they'll come back to the community with their talents rather than bleeding off to another city, county, state, or whatever. Now, of some other events that go on quite regularly, and I haven't been to one yet, but I'm anxious to go, is over on Alpine. We have that wonderful, intriguing place called In Season, where it's a combination restaurant, retail store, and like greenhouse, and you have great wholesome meals there that they prepare about once a month. And some of these are very formal dinners, but they also teach gardening, and they had a free gardening event this past weekend, I think. And they also sell herbs and spices and natural foods. And so I'm anxious to get over there and actually take part in one of their events pretty soon. And then, not to be forgotten, got to make sure we see the trees in the forest. Right near us practically in front of us on the corner of the Miracle Mile and this little cute street is the Art Lab. And they have free Wednesdays.
Yeah, and they have Saturdays also.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have events there. And they've taken what is really a very nice, attractive, very visual, attractive building with large, huge wraparound windows on the front. It looks like it used to be a car dealership or something like 60 years ago. Anyway, and it was once Ron's San Francisco Floral. It's been a computer store and a few other things. But the Art Lab has really restored that location to prominence and great visual effect. Another place, by the way, that has held quite a few trivia events and various other things to entertain people and bring them in is the Abbey down the street from us.
Yeah.
Which is along with Valley Brew and the Channel Brewing Company and the Taps, I can't remember what it's called, Taps and Barrels, something across the street from us here, next to Werlo's, is a really specializes in very spectacular craft beers and things. The only thing about these craft beers, if you haven't had one, be alerted to the fact that craft beers, like European beers where I just came from, they put the real alcohol into those beers. Those beers are the real thing. Our mass-produced beers in this country, of course, are watered down because regulations force them to, essentially, with a very relatively small alcohol content. And that's why Europeans generally won't drink them when they come here. So, now, one thing Europe does is pretty cool. They do this with and this is throughout Europe, although I originally thought it was Germany. It's actually in France and Rome also, in Italy. And you've probably seen this, Dustin, they have measurements on the glasses. And by law, they have to fill that drink to that measurement. If it's 32, I don't know, milligrams, I can't think of the right measurements right now. Whatever it's supposed to be, they fill it there. The foam goes above that, by the way. The foam doesn't count. The beer has to get all the way up to that line. And they do that with sodas, and they do it with I even saw that on coffee cups. Sometimes I saw it on glass coffee cups in Rome. As I told Governor Don, there are no paper cups or styrofoam or anything like that or plastic in Rome. Everything we saw in Rome was served on a real plate, a real cup, a real saucer, real silverware, and not just anything. This was the real top drawer stuff. The only thing is they only serve the really good coffee to it. I just made fun of American beers. I grew up with and I'm used to watered down mediocre American coffee, and I was kind of thirsting for a basic watered down mediocre American coffee, and I could not get that in Rome. Not even McDonald's. By the way, McDonald's was everywhere in Rome. I couldn't believe it. But even they couldn't do that. They had the high quality coffee there too. So, a couple other things we can mention here. We have, again, some big events coming up. Again, the show Stockton Alive. We got to talk about how Stockton's alive. I guess you know quite well that the next stock market is right around the corner.
Doing push-ups at a new location, I hear.
Yes, I was just going to say they've committed, at least for the next few, to be in downtown Stockton in, as we just mentioned, the Martin Luther King Plaza next to Cesar Chavez Library, Central Library.
What are they putting directly across the street from there, right next to the Bank of the West building?
Going to be a Starbucks and a bank.
That's what I thought it was.
I can't remember which bank is going in.
I think it's Chase, right?
I think so. I think it is Chase.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
That's an unusual combination.
Yeah.
Although you see banks and Starbucks in grocery stores now.
Yeah.
But I just never.
There's one off Hammer. Bank of the West has one off Hammer.
Oh, I didn't realize
that.
Yeah. Because I don't get to Hammer that often, actually.
Yeah, it's right next to Kaiser.
Okay.
That Bank of the West. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So stock market coming up Saturday, April 14th, Martin Luther King Park with the incredible pair of dynamic young ladies, of course, Ann Wilcox and Amy Seifert.
Happy belated birthday, Amy.
Yeah, I know, and they also a bunch of they sought for and received a bunch of messages for Ann Wilcox too. They both had birthdays recently, and they were at the event at the Save Downtown Stockton event, by the way. Save Downtown Stockton Federation, SDSF. Now, right after we get a chance to recover from that incredible stock market day, then we get to celebrate clean air and water on Earth Day, April 22nd, which will be over at Victory Park.
KXVS is one of the proud partners.
That's right.
Earth Day. Yes.
In fact, shortly after, I did maybe my first show or two here, was Earth Day last year. It's hard to believe, but I think I've been on the air since March of last year. I guess we should have an anniversary show. Anyway, I remember that because you guys were broadcasting live over both on the air and over loudspeakers at the event.
Yes, we were.
Yes, I remember that quite well. And that was very interesting to see that. So we've got Earth Day coming up. Now, Earth Day was started, I believe, in March of 1970. Either March or April. I can't remember which month. But it was 1970. We were talking about this the other day. Apparently, as I recall, that was a relatively grassroots-sponsored event that citizens just decided to get behind. But it apparently was the impetus, the final thing that got the first major environmental legislation through Congress, which was the Clean Air, which I believe is August 1970, the Clean Air and Water Act. And then, and I may not have this right, I may be out of sequence on this, but after the Clean Air and Water Act was passed, either as part of that bill or immediately following or close thereafter, came the bill that created the Environmental Protection Agency.
The EPA.
Yes, the EPA, which many don't like, I'll admit that, but I personally think it's a great idea. I'm not sure how great they are from day to day all the time, but I think somebody realized you could have the Clean Air and Water Act, but it wasn't much good unless somebody's going to enforce some of that. Now, by the way, what triggered the Earth Day and what triggered the Clean Air Act and Water Act and the EPA? These things, people complain too much about. I don't mean to complain too much. Let me rephrase that. People complain a lot about what they see as too much regulation, and I can't disagree with that. There's many ways in which our government overreaches and overregulates, and I could sit here and spend a whole hour just on transportation and how I have to deal with that. However, having said that, we bring these things, we bring regulations on ourselves when we abuse things. And then somebody says, oh, there ought to be a law. And eventually you get a law. And then, of course, once it's passed, there's always the bureaucracy, and they have to fund it, and the taxes go up and all that. Well, if people would just do the right thing and be good, you wouldn't have this. And I'll give you an example of what triggered Earth Day and what triggered the Clean Air and Water Act and the Environmental Protection Agency. Cleveland's river caught on fire.
Which one?
Allegheny? I don't. That's what I've been trying to remember. I couldn't remember if there's one called the Cleveland River or if it's the Ohio River going through Cleveland or the Allegheny River. But their river caught on fire. Now you've got a serious problem when your river catches on fire. That's just not an everyday thing. Because last I knew, water doesn't burn. But when you pour a bunch of crap into the water, that crap in the water will burn.
It was the Cuyahoga River.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Cuyahoga River. Okay. Of course, as we all know, the once famous Three Rivers Stadium was named after the confluence of the Ohio River, the Allegheny River, and I believe the Monongahela River. So I don't know if I said that right either, but anyway, I never did like that stadium. It was round. I always thought it was kind of ugly.
Caught
inside.
fire in 1969.
Oh, 69. Okay.
Yeah.
And you said it's the Cuyahoga River?
Yes, Cuyahoga.
Yeah, and so
try to spell that name.
Yeah. Well, I think it's Cuyahogha.
Yes.
Okay.
Cuyahoga.
And yeah, actually, it's an Indian name and it's phonetic, so that because it's truly phonetic, it's actually pretty easy to spell. I believe there was actually some ships damaged. The fire broke out in an area where ships were docked. I don't know if they were active ships and it was their port, or if it was inactive ships in kind of a mothball area. But I guess so much crap had been poured out of the ships or dumped or whatever, and oil and grease and chemicals or whatever, that the river caught on fire. By the way, one of the toughest things to put out is a river fire.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't even think you can put it out. I think it just has to burn out on its own.
By the way, you were correct on your Pittsburgh trivia. Three Rivers is Allegheny, Monongahela. I can't pronounce. Yeah, that one in Ohio.
I'm lucky I could say that.
Yeah.
I could also say Kristina Navratilova. That was the most challenging sports name in the entire decade of the 70s.
You ever broadcast tennis, Nate?
No, I never have. Well, I think I did do a tape highlight of a Chico State tennis match one time.
Go Wildcats.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. The cat is back. That was always the saying. So anyway, when your river catches on fire, you got a problem. That's not exactly you're gonna have tourism over that.
Cleveland has such bad luck.
I know.
Yeah.
Although in recent years they've kind of turned some of that around.
Yes, they have.
Their best decade was probably the 90s. I think that's when the Rock and Roll Museum came along. That's when they built I forgot the original name of it now, but that's when they built the beautiful ballpark.
Drew Carey had a hit TV show about it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And then I think before the 90s were done is when they built the Cleveland Browns Stadium. So, but unfortunately, since the Indians got to the World Series, I want to say 1997 or 98 against the Atlanta Braves, and lost in 7 games.
Then they lost to the Cubs a couple of years ago.
In fact, yeah. But other than that, they haven't had much going. Mm-mm. Now, the Indians sold out for, I think, the first 4 years they built that stadium.
Yeah, the Jake.
Yeah, the Jacobs Field, that's right. Which it's got a different name now, I'm pretty sure.
Sponsored.
What is it?
They have a sponsor. Some insurance.
I was going to say insurance or banking, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, and it's just the most dull name you could ever imagine, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Cleveland hasn't had a lot going on that's been real positive for several years. Of course, as I say that, no one can forget that the Cleveland Cavaliers did knock off the Warriors in 7 games and got Cleveland. It's brought home Cleveland's first major sports championship in something like 52 years or whatever. Oh, but anyway, so that's that. And of course, they claim they pulled off some kind of coup with a trade here the other day, rebuilding their team. I haven't really been able to go on the big trip. I didn't get to follow the NBA too much. I know Houston's gone completely crazy and won 31 of 33 or something like that. There's no hope the Warriors will have the best record.
Everybody's hurt on the Warriors.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Curry comes back after 2 weeks. And in the third or fourth quarter, I forgot which it was, somebody stumbled, one of his own Warrior players stumbles into him.
JaVale McGee.
Oh, okay. And have they diagnosed what the situation? I have not seen.
I believe it's an MCL sprain last time.
A sprain, but not a tear.
Yes, I believe so.
I was going to say, and I was kind of in hopes that it wasn't like a really devastating injury where you have to you're out for sure and you got to have surgery and all that, reconstructive surgery, whatever. And the reason I thought there was a chance of that, I saw the replay of when he was injured, and yeah, he was instantly hurt, and he was hopping around, but he was able to walk out of there on his own power. Mm-hmm. A really bad knee injury, they have to wheel you out on a cart.
Yes, they do.
You don't. I've seen the injuries. I've seen highlights of the injuries to Gale Sayers and all these great football players and all these other wonderful people, and you just don't walk out of there if you have a torn ACL or something like that. So I don't know if he can play much again this year, though. He probably could come back if it's not too serious and if he takes it easy. But obviously, the guy he's had, 3 different ankle sprains this year?
Yeah, and he switched back to the shoe that is not a high top, basically. So
okay.
During that game, he came back and he was wearing his low Under Armour new shoes instead of his old high top, which people like to see.
Although that probably had nothing to do with it.
No, it didn't, probably.
I know at the time it happened.
But a lot of people were freaking out before that. Oh, Steph's coming back, but he's wearing low tops, yeah.
Right. I know that at the moment it happened, and it seemed or appeared as though he'd hurt an ankle again. And they were trying to figure out which one they thought it was, and of course it turned out it was a knee.
If you want to talk Warriors, 219-944-5980. Yeah. Dial up and dance.
And speaking of injuries, unbelievably...
Not Nate's injuries from the Vatican.
Bumgarner now.
Oh, yeah. Breaking it. Yeah, don't try to stop a pitch. I know it's a comebacker, but don't.
No.
Not with your pitching hand.
A pitcher should never try
to stop. And after riding a motorcycle last year.
Unless it's the winning run of the bottom of the ninth inning of the 7th game of the World Series, you should not reach out and try to...
So throw every body part you can at that last pitch.
Yeah, that's the one time I'd say it's justified. Mm-hmm. I understand he's out until like the All-Star break now or something.
Something like that, 4 to 6 weeks, probably longer.
Hopefully Johnny Cueto will have a big year coming back.
But Ty Block gets the start against Clayton Kershaw on Thursday in Chavez Ravine.
Jeez, that's right. The opener's just around the corner here.
Doing push-ups.
Yep. So that was not so good.
Yeah.
Now
did you watch any sports in Europe?
I was just you just read my mind.
I always do that.
Yes, you did. Yeah, everywhere we went with soccer games, of course, and that's
it's big in Germany.
Bundesliga. When you're sitting in a bar and you're watching the big screen television, 90% of the time at least it's to some kind of sports channel, but that sports channel, just like you see NFL channel or
soccer.
NBA, it's all soccer, and you're getting soccer from and you're getting from all over Europe. They'll show you Italy and Germany and France and Russia and Switzerland, and it's amazing all the things.
What city were you in Germany?
Well, we were in Frankfurt. Was our primary city, and as I explained to Governor Don, while the population officially is only 717,000, which doesn't sound like much, it's a huge city. Number one.
Yes.
Number two, it's a lot like San Francisco, which is about 830,000.
Military city, also, right?
Yes, there's a big United States, I think it's Air Force Base right outside there. I forgot the name of it now, but it was very prominent while we were there. And we ran into people who had served there or talked about it. But anyway, Frankfurt is like San Francisco, far exceeds its importance of its size of its actual population. First of all, it's bigger than San Francisco area-wise. It has a lot of skyscrapers. It kind of looks like a much classier version of Los Angeles to me. But anyway, the main thing I was going to say about it's a financial center. It's a financial and a tech center. Now, we're visiting my mom, who lives in a little suburb called Eschborn, which is only about 12 kilometers from Frankfurt. But Eschborn has about 8 skyscrapers ringing around it that are actually like headquarters of .com, regional headquarters of .com companies, or European headquarters. So that was interesting. And then from there, thanks to the great German train system and their great connecting bus services and the incredible integrated public transportation they have there, from Frankfurt on the same day, in a fairly relaxing manner, we took a high-speed train connected to a connecting bus and spent our one whole day in Luxembourg, which is both a country and a city. The city of Luxembourg is the capital of the country of Luxembourg, which, as I explained to the governor, Luxembourg is primarily French in culture, but it's mandatory their students must learn German because they believe that's, and English, because those they believe are the financial languages of Europe and the world. And I think they're supposed to take a third language, which tends to be Italian, but they mostly speak French. But if you walk in any particular place there, it could look Italian, it could look German. It's a very diverse place, but everything looks great there.
Yeah, I remember somebody in my sixth grade, my year in elementary school, we had to do reports on a country. Somebody did Luxembourg.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's actually like so many cities.
It's very unique.
Yes. And like so many cities, was founded on a river, but then they decided to actually move the city up about 200 feet to this bluff, and most of the cities about 200 feet above the original Luxembourg. But the most spectacular thing is, and this is fairly new, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago they built this, 6, 7 years ago, they built about a 250-foot tall glass elevator. Shaft, I should say. It's a glass elevator in a shaft that goes up and down for free of charge. It operates from like 4 in the morning till 1 a.m. or something. And you enter this from a public park, and you go from the modern-day Luxembourg down to old Luxembourg in this elevator completely for free, no hassle, just like you're in a hotel elevator or something. Except the elevator's huge. It holds like 75 or 100 people. It's all glass.
Right next to Belgium.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was great. Like I said, it snowed during lunchtime. We were in an authentic French restaurant.
Did you feel like you were in a spy movie?
Could have, yes. I could have been carrying contraband and then being chased by unmarked spies all over the place.
Taken with Nate Knott.
And they would have, and with all as many times I slipped, by the way, I slipped and fell in Luxembourg about equal to the rest of the trip. I was just skating that whole day. Everywhere I went was slush, and it was the reason. Part of it was the temperature was just going above Celsius and below Celsius. Then it was snowing, then it wasn't snowing. Then the snow was melting, then it was freezing into ice. It was amazing. But it was a lot of fun, though.
Hey, Nate, we're winding down the show. We only have 2 to 3 minutes left.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
I want to get your thoughts on the Loyola, Illinois Ramblers.
The Ramblers, yes.
First of all, I didn't know what a Rambler was until I found out it was a dog.
Oh, that's a great question, because I was wondering that myself.
I believe it's a dog.
Well, anyway, it's their first time in the Final Four since 1963.
Which is amazing.
Right. That's, whatever that is. That's 55 years ago. Also, being a true red-blooded Royal American kid from the 50s and 60s, I grew up with Rambler automobiles. Mm-hmm. Rambler, which later became AMC, American Motors Corporation. But Rambler was made up of a merger of Nash and Hudson. And the president who took over shortly after the merger, because the guy that was running the whole thing dropped dead suddenly of a heart attack. And he's the one that came up. He's the one that converted Nash and Hudson in big cars.
The Hudson Hornet, right?
Yes, Hudson Hornet and the Nash Ambassador. And that's the one, the most famous of which Nash car is the one that looks like an upside down bathtub. And it's got huge sofa seats. Nash was the one that invented the reclining seats, and he used to advertise you could lay down flat, which you could because cars were big enough for that, and you could make a whole bed. Mm-hmm. So every parent in America determined that they would never loan a Nash sedan to their son or daughter, especially if they thought they were going to the movies. But anyway, so Nash had some interesting moments on that. But anyway, George Romney, the father of Mitt Romney,
the former governor of Michigan. Right?
Yes, and a one-time presidential candidate. He converted that, and for 5 golden years, American Motors actually climbed up and actually even surpassed Plymouth for a short time as the number 3 top-selling marquee in America, right behind Chevrolet and Ford. No one could believe that now. But later they became famous or infamous for the AMC Pacer. And but what kept them going for many years is in the most brilliant move they ever made. About 1967, they bought Jeep from Kaiser Corporation.
Woo.
And Jeep then became a big deal with the Grand Cherokee and all that.
Yeah.
And that's what kept American Motors in business. And then they eventually sold out to Chrysler in March of 1987. It's amazing they hung on that long as an independent, the only independent automaker in America. And Chrysler paid a small fortune for them. But the real reason Chrysler bought them was for Jeep.
Yes.
And Jeep, in fact, I think is keeping Chrysler, well, along with the Ram trucks, is keeping Chrysler in business now. They don't actually sell many cars anymore, sadly. Chrysler used to be famous for engineering, but I don't know if they really got that going anymore. So, there we are.
So, Nate, before we go, though,
yeah.
Loyola, Illinois of Chicago.
Oh, I want, yes.
No, I want to get your predictions for next week's upcoming week's Final Four, and then next Monday from
Who are the Ramblers playing?
They are playing the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor.
Ooh, that's the top
11
seed now,
versus 5, no.
Oh, it isn't? Who's top seed now, then?
The top seeds are actually playing each other. That's going to be Villanova and Kansas.
Oh,
so we got two powerhouses.
I didn't realize they were both still in it. I haven't been watching
okay,
it.
You've been busy, but who do you got in Loyola, Illinois, Chicago versus Michigan? Who do you have in that game? Just a prediction. Cinderella still have the slipper on?
I think the Ramblers just might do it.
Okay.
I'd say it's 55-45. They win again.
Ooh. Okay.
And now I think Loyola won the NCAA championship in 63.
No.
I don't think they won it in 60, but they were a top basketball program, late 50s, early 60s.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
And then Villanova versus Kansas. You got the two of the powerhouses in college basketball history.
I think Villanova will probably win, although I would prefer Kansas.
So it'll be two Catholic schools against each other.
No, there you go. That's right. Well, I think our train is probably about to pull out of the station. If it were in Germany, in Europe, it'd be an electric train. In the U.S., a diesel train. In a country that still has the stuff, it'd be a steam train.
Well, Nate Knott, it's always been a pleasure, and I hope to see you very soon back on your show, the best show at 6 p.m. on Monday nights.
That's right. Thanks to Betty and Governor for stepping in last week.
No problem. The starter had a miss a start. For Nate Knott, this has been Stockton Alive. Thank you for tuning in KXVS. For more information on the Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org. Thank you from the KXVS studios on the Miracle Mile. Good night, and thank you for listening, as always.